Check this out. Huh? طيب بسم الله الحمد لله وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. Get started tonight بإذن ta'ala. If there are any questions from the brothers or the sisters, from the disciples online or in person, inshallah ta'ala. Please don't forget to list your city and state, town, village, initials, first and last, or first name, last name, whatever you choose to do. Bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Wallahu alam. Tafadhal ya akhi.
Assalamu alaikum. When Imam al-Nawawi rahimahullah says that most of the scholars are with this view, but he's speaking according to his time and the past scholars. So do we now take into consideration scholars who came after him when we say most of the scholars?
Tayyib. Bismillah. A very good question. When Nawawi, may Allah have mercy on him, when he says most of the scholars said, or all of the scholars said, was he speaking on the scholars of his time or those who preceded him? How does that apply to the scholars who come afterwards, so on and so forth? Tayyib. First and foremost is, much of Islamic scholarship is passed down and handed down. The good and the bad of this, the balance within this, is that a lot of the Islamic scholarship isn't new. It's just, inherited and passed down. What the scholars said then, in most cases, most scholars today say the same today. The good, the bad, and the ugly of that. The good, obviously, being following the correct tradition. The opinions of those ulama based off of dalil, proof, evidence. The scholars of Islam of the past, starting with the Salaf, those who came after the Salaf, they differed with two views. In 2023, we don't come and say it's a third view now. And obviously, the bad of that is stagnation, al-jumud, stagnation, being complacent, following the scholars, quoting the scholars who came before, who based their view off of something that was weak, something that wasn't substantial, something that, whether you guys believe this or not, or you can understand this or not, through your own research, you may find it in which you go to the bottom of the well and there's no water there, period. How? Cave. He said the same thing. Taqleed. Husn al-dhan. Good thoughts. But if you research it, you find that there is no text on it. Obviously, the different types of proof and evidence. I'm trying to make a point. Okay? And then, of course, there are times in which it's totally bad, in which something is clearly weak, clearly wrong, clearly erroneous, clearly incorrect. But a person today says it and carries it on just because. So there's good, there's bad, and then there's ugly with regards to the tradition of Islamic scholarship. So there are times in which you in 2023 are allowed to research independently and use your mind and look into the proofs and evidences independently, or follow a scholar who's taking a different. And then there are times which you say, no, there's no research of this issue. It's clear. There's no new hadiths. There's no new revelation. The text is there. They analyzed it. You pick and choose from what they said. All right, so it depends. Obviously, he's talking about the scholars before him and some of his contemporaries. Nawawi rahimahullah ta'ala, without a question, has vast amount of knowledge of different views, different madhabs, different opinions, but not everything. So there's scholars who came before Nawawi, during Nawawi, and after Nawawi, they may have covered things or said things that he didn't say, or picked up where he left off, or criticized or critiqued, or whatever the case may be. And let alone the fact that Nawawi rahimahullah ta'ala, with all of his great knowledge, his extensive knowledge, he is a madhabite. He's a person of a madhab. And that obviously comes with benefits, and it comes with pros and cons. He's a person of a madhab. So he's explaining an issue He's giving the comparative views, but at the same time, he is a person of a madhab. Okay? That's all I'll say on that issue for now. Wallahu alam. Idris.
What is the ruling on fermented products being used in cooking? Like there's some common ones like fermented flour. Once you're done cooking with it, any trace of alcohol/ethanol is removed if
Right.
it's there.
What is the ruling on fermented food products? In general, Islam is not against fermentation. Islam is against intoxication. And obviously, fermentation is a process towards intoxication. All right? So there are many things, many food products which are fermented or contain some type of fermentation. There are teas that are fermented. Some of the best teas, some of the finest teas that you'll find in China. All right? And some of the most early methods of processing and cultivating tea, etc., is fermentation. No one in their right mind is going to think or feel or believe that drinking this tea gets me high or drunk. You can have 20 cups, but the leaves have been fermented. All right? So there are many different things, different sauces, different condiments. All right? Well, there's ketchup or soy sauce or mustard or pickles or yeast, bread, rye, so on and so forth. So just because something has fermentation or ethanol or food alcohol, it doesn't mean it's the same ruling as pass the scotch, the Cavassier, right? Or the you understand? You get it or not? Sour mash, the whiskey. You get the point I'm trying to make? Whatever else you drink, whatever you're into. Be careful, man. Yeah, you never know, huh? If we learn the ways of what? All things. Now I'll tell you, if you get the point I'm trying to make, so there is a difference, nah? Wallahu ta'ala alam. And of course, there are further details on that. That's more than enough for now, hopefully. Wallahu alam. Amjad. Majadak Allah. Nice pinky, Abir. Allahumma barak alaik. I see you implemented that narration, huh? He who doesn't wear it is what? He's not from us. Jazakallah khairan. Inshallah, it's right around the corner, huh? Your company will pick up on that as well. طيب تفضل يا أخي.
The 10 main qira'at, are they all mutawatir or only 7 or are only 7 of them mutawatir and 3 of them mashhur?
Bismillah. Sounds as if you know the answer already.
I don't.
Sounds as if you've researched it. What's important is in Ulum al-Quran, there are more than just 7 modes. And the scholars of Islam, they themselves differ greatly on what that hadith means. Is that the Quran has been sent down upon 7 letters. What's meant by that? 7 qira'at for hasb only, or 7 dialects. So there are more, and of course those 7 are predominantly the most popular, the most famous, and the word or the term mutawatir is going to be applied to them more than others. But of course there are arguments with regards to 7 versus 10 versus more than 10. Understand? And obviously the whole concept of mutawatir in itself is a long discussion. So if you want to take a safe route as an introduction in Ulum al-Quran, you say the 7 are mutawatira, and that qira'ah which is not mutawatira, many scholars they call it qira'ah what? Shadha. And obviously that's a difference with regards to ilm al-hadith and ulum al-Quran. And ilm al-hadith, shadh being weak, and in ulum al-Quran doesn't necessarily mean that they're weak, but they haven't reached that level of what they call or consider mutawatir. Now that's one thing. If they are, or if they aren't mutawatir, can you use them? Is it still valid for you to recite with them and to learn the Quran with them and through them? Those are all arguments. Wallahu ta'ala alam.
Question online.
Fadl.
SK Midland Park, New Jersey. Pertaining to last week's session, is the idda period for a pregnant widow to the delivery of her child with the irrespective of it as extending beyond 4 months and 10 days?
Repeat the question, the last part of the question.
Pertaining to last week's session, is the iddah period for a pregnant widow to the delivery of her child, with irrespective of it extending beyond 4 months and 10 days.
Understood. As we said, the scholars of Islam, they differ on that. Some say the longest of the two periods, and some say delivery. So if the delivery, if like we mentioned this in the class, if she's in her first month of pregnancy, her husband dies, in theory she's going to wait for 8 months, which will be double the period of the 4 months and 10 days. Right? Wallahu ta'ala alam.
SK Midland Park, New Jersey. Can one perform sacrifice on behalf of a deceased person?
I believe we mentioned this earlier. We said that many scholars of Islam, they say that any good deed can be donated to the dead Muslim. Any good deed. And others, they hold the view that donation of good deeds are restricted to what's mentioned in the hadiths and or a debt. Something that a person was supposed to do. They had entered upon it with their intention, whether that be fasting or Hajj was obligatory, etc., with their wealth left behind. So there are different views among the scholars of Islam with regards to that. Many people, they say that the vast majority of ulama hold the view that good deeds can be donated to deceased Muslims, regardless of what the good deed is. Wallahu alam.
HM Melbourne, Australia. Is it permissible not to go on Hajj because you don't want to take the vaccine because you believe it is harmful to the body?
Is it permissible to refrain from Hajj because of the vaccine? Is the vaccine still a necessity? It's lifted? Khairan. If it's lifted, then go. Don't worry about it. And for argument's sake, you got to figure out a way around it. If you believe that the vaccine is harmful, you may believe that the vaccine is haram. Many people do. But Hajj is mandatory. You have the money, you have everything else. You have to figure out some way of what? Circumventing or sidestepping that. You figure it, I don't know. Use your imagination on how that can what? Take place. Hajj being a once in a lifetime experience. Wallahu alam.
OA Sydney, Australia. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. What is the ruling while praying at work? And can I pray in an area which is crowded but not inconveniencing people?
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Yes, you can, inshallah. There's no prohibition. Prayer doesn't have to be made in a secluded place. There's no condition for that. The more secluded, the more khushu' you have, the better. But sometimes you have to maneuver with regards to khushu', with regards to praying on time versus praying an hour later. The hallway is going to be less crowded. You have to maneuver. Wallahu alam.
AM Medina SA. If one needs to take a semester off his studies in Medina University to save some money to get married, should he, and is getting married during your degree ideal as to how many?
Horrible idea. I've never seen a brother take semester off of his studies and succeed. Rather, I've seen tragedy from that. I'm not saying that it's never happened, but I've never seen it, is what I said. In Medina. Mecca, different story. Other universities, different story. But who knows, Medina University is very different now. So maybe things are different. But back in my day, I've never seen a brother take a semester off or a year off and succeed. And I wouldn't advise with that. Finish your degree. What did the hadith state with regards to the kuhl? They asked the Prophet ﷺ about her eye. Ishtakat aynaha, her eye is aching. Let her use some of the kuhl for medicinal purposes. And the Prophet ﷺ said, no, because it's only what? In 10 days, a short period of time. So for argument's sake, you finish your Medina degree. Just get it out the way. Let's say you're not going to study afterwards full time. Just get it out the way. You can get married. You can be a dentist. You can be an engineer. You can be a businessman. You can make it. You can do whatever you want once you have the what? The degree. Just get it out the way. Don't sacrifice nothing. And don't sacrifice nothing of ilm for dunya. Rather make it the opposite. And once you get your degree, now I want to go and be a doctor. I want to make money. Clear. But no one can take that shahada away from you. And your mind isn't the same after studying law, then studying in Medina. Getting married first, then studying in Medina is different. Wallahu alam.
MS Get to Know Canada. Almost every day when I talk about something, I see / hear that same thing in a random video or said by someone else. Is this a real thing or my imagination? For example, I say don't listen to this man if he has characteristics of a hypocrite. Then in a random video I see here are the characteristics of a hypocrite. It was not even the subject of the video.
I don't know what's reality or what's fantasy or your mind and imagination. I don't know that. What's important is deja vu a reality? Is the law of attraction, quote unquote, is that a reality? Is that lawful for a Muslim to even believe that and think that? Is it a phenomenon, etc., etc., etc.? Allahu alam. What's important is make sure that your mind is in its right place and make sure you're not suffering from any type of illness or waswas or anything other than that. Wallahu alam.
AG Calgary, AB. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. Can we pray Salatul Jumu'ah before the time of Dhuhr?
I take the opinion that it's lawful to be made during the time of the Eid. Wallahu alam.
Bronx, New York, PA. Who do you think is the most slept on scholar in Islamic history, or one of them?
Who do I think is one of the most slept on scholars in Islamic history and why? I don't know. Allahu alam. I don't think that there's been a great scholar except that he has become famous and infamous. Now, slept on by some? Perhaps. But me personally, from my humble studies, once the scholar is great, one way or another, somehow, some way, his name is going to reach the top. It's going to reach the surface. Wallahu alam.
HM, Melbourne, Australia. Assalamu alaikum. Some brothers do not pray in the masajid because most of the imams call to voting and in secular elections, and so some say it is an obligation. Please, can you give advice?
Prayer in congregation with its conditions is mandatory, regardless of the imam's practice. As long as it isn't a practice that takes him out of the fold of Islam, and as long as it isn't a practice which clearly goes against his proper Islamic appearance, such as an imam wearing pants or tight pants. Okay, there's an imam who shaves his beard, and you wish to pray at the masjid in which he has some type of beard. That's better. Okay, if that's not the case, if he has a madhab, that's one thing, you know. And then obviously, boycotting the masjid in the house of Allah for these types of issues is going to lead to disaster in most cases. Shaitan is going to trick you and fool you. Let alone the fact that who said voting is haram at large? Everything about voting is haram. Okay? Where does that come from? And if voting is unlawful at large, everything about it is unlawful. You cannot vote in any situation, no problem. But now you have to apply it to other systems and forms of government, which are clearly haram and in opposition to kitab and sunnah, that don't include voting. So therefore, an imam who follows this leader or doesn't say nothing about this leader or agrees with that leader, now you can't pray behind what? Behind him. All right? And that's one of the problems, I would say, from my experiences of the world today. People, they pick and choose their boogeymen. They pick and choose the bad guy that they want to, be bad guys against. What's the ruling on joining the U.S. Army? Right? Astaghfirullah, how can you say that? What you mean it's not haram, blah, 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 blah. They stand up for that. Wala and bara. La tajidu qawmin yu'minuna, right? What's the ruling on America having this base or bomb? Summun bukmun umyun. Literally. Deaf, dumb, blind. Is it lawful? Did Muhammad ibn Wahab say this? No. Woman lam yahkum. No. They pick and choose who they want to be, severe and strict against. So an imam says that voting is halal or is permissible in this situation, in this country, don't pray behind him. But another imam supports this government in the Middle East, don't say anything about them, you can't criticize them, you can't say they with America already done, shh. Let's pray behind him. Get the point I'm trying to make? That's a mushkila, yani. And you have to be against what you consider to be haram and evil, no matter what or who or where it is. Yellow, black, white, purple, Middle East, America, Australia. If you believe something's haram, you have to be against it. And you can't just be, soft here and hardcore there. Right? That's a big problem with da'wah today. May Allah help us all. Fadli akhi.
Um, is being exhausted or, let's say, having to spend time with family an excuse to miss congregation in the masjid for Salah?
If you're exhausted, your body can't make it, that's one thing. As far as if you're a little tired and you can make it, you can push yourself, you do it. Okay, but for argument's sake, the word exhausted is a strong word. It's hard for me to get up right now. It's hard. I'm exhausted. That's not the same as I'm a little tired and a little lethargic. And of course, if you push yourself to go the extra mile, then that's always better for you. In general, it's lawful to avoid the jama'ah if it's a necessity, if it's a harm. Some scholars even mention, if a person's bread is in the oven, it's going to burn. Okay, a person's going to lose money with regards to, something happening to him if he leaves. So the point is that there are excuses for not praying in the jama'ah, but a believer should fight himself and avoid those excuses unless it's an absolute excuse. I can't go. Wallahu ta'ala alam. Fadal.
AM Connected New York. Assalamu alaikum. Should a person fast all 9 days of the Hijjah or is a few days good enough, inshallah?
Wa alaikum salam. Wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. If you can fast all the days, you do that, inshallah ta'ala. And if you can't, you only wish to fast a few days, you do whatever you have the ability to do. Wallahu alam. Fadl ya akhi.
Sallallahu alaykum. You mentioned in your lecture of purification and haste and making dua. If that's the case with Allah, then you have to be patient with Allah while making dua to Him. Then what do you think is the case with sabr, with yourself, your family, your children, your companion, your friend, who may want to give you something but they can't? It's beyond their reach. Let alone human beings are stingy and selfish. Let alone we forget about ourselves. So what did you mean here exactly?
With regards to being patient, when you ask Allah for something, and of course being patient when you ask others for something. Of course, Allah has no limits, but Allah knows things that you don't know, and He chooses to give you things or prevent things for wisdom that He knows. As far as if you have to ask a human being, you can't abuse that person, you can't molest that person, annoy that person, because it may be something preventing them from giving you what you've asked them for. So sabr in any situation or circumstance. Wallahu ta'ala alam. Hamza.
Ahsanallahu alaykum. What is the adab of reading a book?
The etiquette of reading a book. Well, if it's an Islamic book, then you should be sincere. You should only want to read a book with the intention of benefiting from it and teaching others and passing on knowledge to others. Understand? There are many different things, do's and don'ts. From that is that you shouldn't pick up a book with the intention of reading it from cover to cover, then quitting and giving up and jumping to another book. Okay? Also, you should know the nature of the book. This is a reference book. This is a source. They're two different books. This is a metin. This is an explanation. Okay? Obviously, you should respect the book. You should never desecrate anything that has Allah's name on it. And any book is valuable. Okay? You should, if you can, have the ability to lend a book to someone that you trust. That's one thing. Okay? Personalize your book as well. Grow a relationship with the book or the books, etc. Wallahu alam. Fadal.
Some masajid do elections for administration. Some masajid just have brothers who come regularly and they kind of run things. How should a masjid be governed / who should govern it?
Right, with regards to elections and masjids, how should a masjid be governed, so on and so forth? Who should govern it, so on and so forth? Well, Allah Azza wa Jalla, He tells us is that it is only those who believe in Allah, those who believe in the last day, those who establish prayers to the end of that ayah, who are the custodians of the masjids. So the first rule or the first piece of etiquette with regards to who governs the masjid should be those who are pious and righteous. And the masjid should not be ran by people who lack piety and lack righteousness. But at the same time, in the khayra min the best of those whom you hire are those who are strong and trustworthy. So you might find a brother who's pious and righteous, but he doesn't know how to maintain his own household. He can't pay the bills in his own house. He doesn't know how to keep the lights on. So it has to be a mixture of those who are pious and righteous and those who have enough knowledge of this world to keep the masjid running smoothly, efficiently, clean, warm when it's cold, cool when it's hot, etc., etc., etc. And there has to be a balance. The masjid cannot be turned into a worldly, establishment. You can't run it like it's a business, but at the same time, you have to run it what?
Like a business.
Like it's a business, but not too much. You get the point I'm trying to make? So it has to be a balance, even if the balance isn't 50-50. All right? As far as electing people, then as we said before, there lies no doubt. There are many aspects of voting which are haram, for sure. No discussion about it. There's no doubt about that. No second or third opinion. And there are other aspects of voting or electing or nominating which are Islamically compliant or meskut anha. There's nothing in Islam saying something for it or against it. It's just silence. And you have the ability to take it if you want and leave it alone if you what? If you want. So when it comes to voting and electing, some things are unlawful and some things are okay. Okay? What's important is a person being put in a place in which the people are going to nominate him, vote for him, versus a person putting himself in that place. Right? Having a sincere intention that this is an honor and a responsibility versus power, control, and influence. You get the point I'm trying to make? So it has to be a balance, has to be a mixture. And of course, there are similarities and parallels between some, not all, aspects of voting and election or elections and shura. Not all, but what? Some. Wallahu ta'ala alam. Fadal akhi.
Can a wife engage in li'an against her husband?
Can a wife engage in a li'an against her husband? In brief, no. And that's because the scenario is totally different. A woman walks in and she sees her husband sleeping with another woman. Who is that woman? Allahu Alam. Second wife, third wife, fourth wife? That which his right hand possesses, etc. She doesn't know. Versus a man walking in and seeing his wife with a guy, there is no second option. She only has one husband, and that's the only man that she can legally, lawfully sleep with. So it's a world of a difference between the two. And of course, you want to ask yourself the question, why does Allah only say, man, accusing a woman? Because it is a one-way street. You get the point I'm trying to make? So for argument's sake, a woman, she walks in, she sees her husband, he's naked on top, beneath, on the side, whatever, with another woman, engaging in that act. What is this? You're cheating on me. You dog. You this, you that, you this and that. Well, I got married yesterday. I just didn't tell you. Okay? Or I took my ex back and I just what?
Didn't tell you.
I forgot the text message didn't send. Now I'm never happened to you with the iPhone, right? You think that you sent a message and you have bad service, huh, Hamza? Then later on afterwards, you see that it wasn't what? It wasn't delivered. I told you I needed food tonight. You said, I never got your message, Sheikh. You get the point I'm trying to make? So there are different scenarios that a man can have with other women that a woman can't have with a what? Another man. Now, as far as if there's no issue with the message, the iPhone, it was sent, it was delivered. The red receipt is what?
Yeah.
Is on, bro. You read the message, right? There's no issue now. You have to live in our world today, all right? So there's no issue. The husband is cheating, for sure. Absolutely. But obviously, it's a different process that she has. She can get a divorce, so on and so forth, to her wali. I don't want to be married to this man no more. He slept with another woman he's not married to. I asked him. It's not his wife. There are no right-hand possessions, blah, 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 blah. There's no jihad. People aren't fighting. Your scholars say there's no jihad whatsoever. It's abrogated. It doesn't exist anymore. It's just in the Quran. That's a different story. Wallahu alam. Shuyukhak yani. قيدت الكلام شيوخك أنت. تفضل. Next question from Allah and Ahmed.
And that's Ganu Canada. Isn't it wrong for a sister to be in a video with a non-Mahram brother, YouTube, Instagram, etc., whether via Zoom or face-to-face, whether she wears niqab or not?
A woman being in a YouTube or Instagram video with a non-mahram man is not absolutely wrong or haram. Are there times and scenarios in which it is haram? Yes. But the sheer, as we have explained, the sheer congregation, the mixing of a man and a woman is not haram. It is haram when it's like this, in this light, in this manner, for this reason, so on and so forth. Everybody clear on this? But there are plenty of times in which men and women are in one place in Islam. Hajj, Umrah, Jama'ah, the Prophet's Masjid, there were men and women in the same place, under the same roof. How you're dressed, how close you are, laughing, smiling, joking, flirting, smiling with your eyes, wearing perfume, makeup, tight muscle shirts, flexing, different story. So it depends on the video. Wallahu alam.
JM Bronx, New York. What is the limit? What is the limit between a wife and a husband where one should seek a divorce? For example, a wife or husband is not affectionate, or a wife or husband spends more time on their phone. Jazakallah khairan.
Well, yakum. Well, you need counseling in general. You need counseling. As far as if a man lacks affection, it depends on the man. Some people just aren't affectionate people, or they show their affection in other means. You know, everybody doesn't wear their skin or their emotion on their skin or their sleeve. It depends on the person, and it depends on you, right? And I think, and Allah knows best, oftentimes a woman is going to set the pace when it comes to emotion and affection. In most cases, wallahu alam. And the Prophet ﷺ clearly commanded the people to marry women that are affectionate, wadud. And he doesn't say that the man has the affection, but he mentions that the woman is affectionate, mutahabbiba. All right? So oftentimes the woman, she sets the tone of the vibe. All right? Allahu alam, not every single time, but in most cases. And sometimes a woman could be standoffish, or she may have an attitude problem, or she's feeling this, or whatever is going on in her life, Allahu alam, and it makes the man more standoffish. So it depends. Wallahu alam. As far as being on your phone too much, more than your wife, then if your husband is like most of us today, we're on our phones 24/7. We worship our phones. Our phones are idols and icons, unfortunately. Some people have shirk akbar. Some people may have shirk asghar. Whatever the case, whatever level of idolatry you have to your phone, then try to include your husband with your phone. Send each other text messages. Play video games. What's it, Game Pigeon? What's it called? Yeah. Right? Play battle shit with your wife from a long distance, something like this. Text him, even though you guys are sitting right next to each other. Send him a video. You send him a video. Send him a link. You send him something. Request money. What of that? Send her a card. Whatever, you know, because the phone is no way that the people want to do without their phones. So we might as well what? Incorporate them. So read Quran on your phone. Read Quran together on your phone. Figure out a way of incorporating your idol with your tawheed. Allahumma musta'an. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. You guys understand what I'm trying to say, right? Speaking in our time, our language, our culture, right? Of course, tawheed and idols will never what? Mix water and oil. Wallahu alam. Fadal Ahmed.
IQ, Chicago, Illinois. Do we know of any of the classical scholars of earlier times who saw holding hands on chest after ruku as the sunnah?
Say the question again?
Do we know of any of the classical scholars of earlier times who saw holding hands on chest after ruku as the sunnah?
Placing your hands upon your chest after ruku', and that being a sunnah, are there any classical scholars? The argument, if you look at it, it can go either of the two ways. So the answer to the question is yes. Many classical scholars held that view versus an argument saying no classical scholars held that view. Where do the hands go after the ruku'? Some people say that there's no need for further proof or evidence because that's the asl. The hands were there. The hands go back. You raise them, you make the supplication, and the hands go back to where they started. And then another scholar may come along and argue and say, rather, it needs a specific proof stating that it goes back onto the chest. So it can go either way. Wallahu ta'ala alam.
BK Nairobi, Kenya. Is meditation haram?
Is meditation haram? This will be our last question tonight, Bidnillahi ta'ala. Is meditation haram? I think it depends on what you mean by meditation. You mean sitting in a cave for 9 years straight until your image appears on a rock? That's one thing. No food, no sleep. He ripped his eyelids off, they say. In Dharma, the Dharma cave. The founding father of tea, they say. Where tea comes from and the use of tea. He drank the tea to stay up, to fulfill his 9-year vow that he would not stop meditating for 9 years straight until he reached enlightenment. And he sat in the cave for such a long time that his image appeared on the wall. That's what they say. Well-known story. And he tried to rip his eyelids off. Right? And one of the famous teas having the name of eyelashes. Al-Muhim, or eyebrows. What's important is, that's one thing. You meditating, you're not praying, you're not fasting, you're not making hajj, you're living by yourself, you don't eat, you don't drink, you don't sleep, you're humming or hemming, doing some other type of stuff? Of course not. As far as if you mean by meditation, sitting down with yourself, by yourself, thinking, pondering, relaxing, breathing, away from the electronics, away from people, clearing your mind, reflecting, different story. Wallahu ta'ala alam. So it depends on what you mean and how you're using it. Some Hindu, Buddhist, yogi stuff? Of course not. Clearing your mind, clearing your head, being with yourself, turning off your electronics, breathing, relaxing, calming yourself down, pondering, reflecting, reviewing something, memorizing something. That's a what? Total different story. Right? Allah Azza wa Jalla surely knows best. We'll stop here tonight. Thanks a lot for watching, for tuning in. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen.